Hello there. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Kokomlemle. Our digital address, GA09925339. Our leading stories this hour. Audit Service confirms veracity of documents in the public domain revealing 52 billion cedis of tax revenues have been diverted into unknown account by the Ghana Commercial Bank. But the bank is denying vehemently the claims that monies were diverted. We'll bring you the details. Also, we hit the campaign trail as President Akufo-Addo touts its intervention to, as he puts it, protect Ghana's bauxite. And we hear from NDC's flag bearer John Dramani Mahama, who is hitting the eastern region and expected to hit Accra and Volta region. And that is the party's stronghold. We'll also tell you what the other parties are doing. And 9 months since the sword cutting for the National Cathedral, which sharply divided the country, we revisit the conversation and ask, where are we almost a year on? We have Secretary for the Board of Trustees joining us with some answers. And the pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. To join us on DSTV 421, Go TV 144. Remember, we're streaming live on our YouTube channel and on our other social media handles, especially Facebook. Your thoughts are welcome. The number is 0540109009. My name is Gifty Andropia. This is the pulse. As always, please be my guest. You're welcome. I'll take you through the details of those stories and more right now. Now, the Audit Service has confirmed the veracity of documents circulating in the public domain, which also reveals that 52 billion cedis of tax revenues have been diverted into a known account by the Ghana Commercial Bank. According to a statement released by the Audit Service yesterday and signed by a Deputy Auditor General George Swansea-Winfo, the said audit that reviewed the diversion was requested by the Finance Minister. My colleague Winston Amwa is joining me right now in the studio. Now, what you're seeing on the screen, what's the excerpt, I should say, of the statement by both the Auditor General's Department as well as the Ghana Commercial Bank. Now, Winston is going to give us a quick background to this story and what the findings of the special audits carried out by the Audit Service is. Winston, you're welcome.
So, yes, Gifty, there was lots of issues about some funds not being accounted for, 52 billion Ghana cedis. Now, what the Audit Service did was to come out to say that, okay, so they actually conducted an audit. Now, initially, the impression was created that these missing funds happened in 2020. And then the Audit Service says they actually conducted that audit from 2015 to 2020. Now, if you go through the statement, it talks about commercial banks and their transfers to the Bank of Ghana. What that suggests is that the Audit Service dealt with more than one bank, and it doesn't mention the name of a bank as in GCB Bank, okay? And so basically that's what the whole story talks about, with the Audit Service coming out there to say this investigation was carried out as a result of a request by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta.
And since the special audit report became public, the Audit Service has also been responding to some of the issues that have been raised here. Tell us, what do they say?
Well, in responding to some of the issues, now the Audit Service talks about how, following the audit and request for better particulars, they've been able to find out where some of the transfers are together with the banks. The Audit Service, however, in its letter indicates that some of the transfers and doesn't say all of the transfers. And so we're imagining that some are still not accounted for, but it doesn't state how much has been accounted for and how much hasn't been accounted for.
But we also know that today the bank, the GCB Bank, they have also raised their own concerns about it. They're denying all of these. Can you give us a wrap as well on what their position as well is?
Well, they actually make reference to a doctored letter and say that that is not true. And so Ghanaians should discount the narrative that is what has transpired. And they want to assure their shareholders that the GCB Bank Ghana would not do anything of a sort. And so that whole statement is untrue, and they are not involved in any lack of transfers as being put out in the public domain.
Well, this is a developing story that's just, I think, started developing, I should say, since yesterday. We're still following it, and we'll get more details as we go along. Winston, thank you very much for coming. Winston Amwa there helping us with the details of the statement by the Audit Service, as well as the response we're getting from the Ghana, the GCB Bank. Well, the Tax Justice Coalition has been demanding more information from government agencies. They say it is necessary for us to ascertain the whereabouts of that 52 billion cedis. And that which is said to have been diverted. Salifu Kanton is a member of the Tax Justice Coalition. He's joining me via Zoom. Hello, Mr. Kanton. Well, we don't have Salifu Kanton at the moment, but even if we don't get it in this particular bulletin, we'll be sure to bring you up to speed on what their concerns actually are as we go along. This is your election headquarters. President Akufo-Addo is wrapping up his 3-day tour of the Ashanti region with the commissioning of a police hospital at Boshen, inspection of ongoing projects, and a drive-through Bantama, as well as Ashtown as well, has been going on. The president is reinforcing his call for the electorate to come out and vote on election day. He's been addressing a rally at Manson Kwanta, a mining town, where he also said his position on illegal mining remains unchanged. And he's been stressing the point that he cannot support any mining activity that destroys the environment. Apart from that, President Akufo-Addo has also been talking about Ghana's bauxite, and he's been touting what he said he did by saving the country, our bauxite resources. Elton Brobe is our correspondent who is embedded with the president's campaign team. Elton is joining me on phone. Elton, you're still on the move. Let's begin with what the president said about mining. I'm interested to hear the response that came, because this is a very big deal. And anytime the issue about mining comes up, people have said there is politicization. How did the people in this mining community respond to what the president said about illegal mining?
Okay, so this is so the president himself in his introductory remarks first said that before heading to Manson Kwanta, he was under the impression that he was going to get a postal welcome. But that did not happen. He was quite surprised at the turnout that came to greet him at Manson Kwanta. This was the first stop, and he wasn't expecting such a crowd. And for that reason, he heard that the community is pleased, the government is to ban illegal mining or Galasay, and that we're going to show their displeasure at the president's meeting, and that is not happening. And he said that their outcome of support for his government is not giving him the confidence and the power to do more to sanitize the mining industry. Now, it was quite clear that he's not against mining, but he's against any form of mining that destroys the environment, especially our lands and water.
Okay. Elton. Yes, go ahead, Elton.
Yes, and that his position will not change, despite the fact that his main opponent in the December 7th election, the NDC presidential candidate John Mahama, he's been promised that if elected, he will ensure that he concessions belonging to some small-scale miners and their establishments will be given back to them. We will not go that direction. That what he is more interested in is ensuring the entrenchment of the mining concept with its training and ensure that people who undertake small-scale mining do so in an environment that will preserve the land and the water body. And that is
Elton, I'm losing you a little bit there, but let's listen to the president make that point. I'll come back to you. When I do, I want you to tell us about what he's been saying about bauxite. There has been a huge campaign about saving what they call the Etiwa forest, but the president has been saying what he has done in that regard. We'll hear that, but let's listen to the president on illegal mining.
We need to be some Kase. You to me mining Wagana. Mr. Minkasa da. Say to me mining Wagana. Me say Yen nananum breso, ye mining Wagana. Na mining a kwaso wadiano and say asaseno and Kayambeto and say Siono and Kayambeto. It is yes, we are Baba mining. Yes, said I am no choir and say asaseno and say Siono and no and a macana mitasan, baby Amijano and Hana Mijna, Mrs. Amaja was asking. Me say, your Baba yes is a full from mining you are doing a hotel and the beer year baba a community mining no my band you go so then or beer or your mining the Juma and Mono, but we are going to do a different kind of mining for the future of our country and for the protection of our land. Me hear Momoa, oh, but tell you about Penibia, or no, I said, I'm fan of our castle, a gallant said, or no, your Baba, yet to a boo. Men, yes, sir. Men, yes, I'm a pagana for a year to do. Say, Matra, my general, yes, sir, men, yes, sir. The Jumana Mama, you know, as someone near and someone near. Now say someone near. My destra didn't say, my destra didn't say. And your mumma me crying, now me try me Jumano so now for more for Nanano and yeah Juma.
So let me try a little bit of summary there. The president says we cannot stop mining. This is something that our ancestors have done in the years past. I'm just saying that let's do so by protecting our environment, our lands, our water bodies. He goes on to say that I am implementing the community mining projects and I need you to help me. He says do not listen to those who say they will stop you from mining, but if you are satisfied, he first asked them, are you satisfied with the work I have done? He got an uproar from there. He says, if you are, then give me 4 more years. Let's get to Elton and wrap it all up with him. Elton, let's wrap it up with the bauxite issue. Now, there is a group, Arocha Ghana, for example, they've been pushing against mining in the Etiwa forest, for example. President Akufo-Addo has been talking about bauxite mining. What does he say?
Bauxite. And we just left the month for water. Remember that in 2017, according to before the government moved part in 2016, remember the Federal Commission, a company belonging to Ghana or Mahama, find bauxite in the area based on the land, the country. They moved in that area, the business in operations of this mining company. The matter eventually went to court. The Minerals Committee started to reform the line to today. And today, that matter came up strongly. The first was the Ashanti Government. The U.S. congratulated the time of resisting that mining operation. And then President Akufo-Addo comes on to say that they have done everything that they need to do to ensure the mining of bauxite starts to end. According to him, only 5% of the deposit, the bauxite deposit, the government has used as butter to secure that $2 billion from the final hydro deal. And that he as president went to protect the natural resources of the country for the larger interest of the entire country, and not for one individual. He said that they have done everything themselves. They've done their environmental impact analysis. They have done the mining leasing to the companies. There's a process ongoing for the establishment of the refinery. So it appears to me that mining on bauxite in places like the Patagonia, and the other areas, something there. There's also mention of the Black Forest. What I can say for sure is that for the mining, the bauxite deposit in the area of Central region, the mining aspect of it is something hopefully next year.
Well, Elton, thank you very much. I was losing you intermittently. I will try and read what you sent in. Elton says that President Akufo-Addo has been talking about, he says that but for his intervention, the huge bauxite deposit at Nyinahini and other parts of the Ashanti region would have ended in private hands. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. And as you recall, government in 2017 cancelled that bauxite mining lease awarded to Exton Cubic Group Limited, a company that was owned by Ibrahim Mahama, who's also president of, I beg your pardon, of former President John Mahama. Now, 5% of that deposit has been used as butter for the $2 billion Sino-Hydro deal. Of course, there was debate about it as well. But addressing a rally at Echimamponua, President Akufo-Addo said that he will continue to fight to protect, in his words, national assets. And he's been stressing that mining of bauxite will start soon. And that's what Elton was narrating to us. But because they're on the move, obviously, the sound wasn't that clear. This gives you an idea what the president has been talking about as far as bauxite is concerned. I'm going to take you now to the camp of the NDC. Now, flag bearer of the party, John Dramani Mahama, is on his way as we speak to the Eastern region. Maxwell Agbagba has been embedded with that team since they started their final lap of the campaign. Maxwell is joining us via Zoom. Hello, Maxwell.
Hello, Gifty.
It's good to have you. Let's start with the latest on the on Mr. Mahama's campaign. What's going on?
Well, as you speak now, the team is heading to the Eastern region now, and it is after a tour of the Savannah region. So today, just some minutes after 12 p.m., they all left to the Eastern region, where the campaign is expected to continue. We are told, in fact, we do know that later from the Eastern region, he'll be heading to the Volta region, and then from the Volta region, he would head to the Greater Accra region. A key amongst the issues he's talking about, just on the point that you ended on mining, he holds a contrary view on the issue of mining, for instance. In a lot of the mining communities that we visited with him, especially in the Ashanti region, in other parts, he told the people that for those who are their concessions unjustifiably taken from them, we'll make sure he returns it. He talks about a wider reform of the mining sector, especially, which he says would encourage sustainable mining. In fact, in some areas that we visited, he said persons who've been arrested and have been incarcerated because they engaged in illegal mining, they will be freed, or they'll be pardoned, if he becomes, president. And surprisingly, I mean, a lot of the people we met on the ground were happy. They cheered him on, as he made those, statements. So that's it on mining. But on a store of northern Ghana, I mean, Savannah region, Upper East region, Northeast region, he's been talking a lot about rural electrification. So he says that some projects, when it comes to rural electrification, he started them, but as the NDC was voted out of power, they were unable to continue with those projects. And he has been promising the people that if the NDC is elected, they'll make sure they complete those, they connect those communities to the national grid. In the Northeast region, he talked about a Northeastern University. He talked about University for the Northeast region. He also talked about a stadium, for regions that do not have stadia. He promised that we're going to construct, some for them. He's been talking a lot also about the free senior high school program. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's been the major theme in all the communities that we visited.
And Maxwell, that has been one of the biggest parts of the campaign at the moment, especially during the final lap. Now, we had them talk about the Chempe, and then we're hearing talks about Fanina, and then we're hearing what the administration, of course, the governing NPP has announced in terms of free tertiary education. So walk us through that bit of the campaign messages that he's been sharing.
The Fanina actually came later after his tour of this region. So I think we'll be watching keenly to see how he's going to put, that message across, knowing that it was recently, added to the NDC's manifesto. So really, he didn't have the opportunity to mention that when he got on the campaign trail. But usually what he would do is to debunk some assertions out there that if the NDC is elected, the NDC will abolish the free senior high school program. Anytime he gets the opportunity, he addresses that and says that, okay, so the NDC, if elected, will make sure it improves the free senior high school program. And he calls the double track red, gold, green traffic light. That's what he calls it. He says if the NDC is elected, they'll make sure within 1 year they abolish the double track system. He talks about the construction of 200, making sure they complete 200 day senior high schools. He says that would provide more accommodation and that would provide more space. So there wouldn't be a need for the double track system. Okay. There's also been talking about the National Apprenticeship program. So that also featured prominently in the places we visited in northern Ghana. We all know that the migration of women and girls from northern Ghana to southern Ghana is a major problem. Indeed. He says the NDC intends fixing that the National Apprenticeship program so that girls from northern Ghana will stop, coming to southern Ghana in search of greener pastures. He says if we equip them with the necessary skills, they wouldn't want to move. They would want to stay where they are and make a pasture.
All right, Maxwell, thank you very much. And we'll certainly be getting the sound bites from the campaign trail from the eastern region where Mr. Mahama is there and as I'm saying, he's expected to be in the Greater Accra region as well as the Volta region. We'll be getting you more when it does happen. But the vice presidential candidate of the People's National Convention, PNC, Reverend Dr. Divine Ayivo, is urging Ghanaians to vote for his party in the December elections for progressive change, as he puts it. According to him, the PNC's policies and programs would accelerate the development of Ghana. He's on a tour in the Volta region.
Pastor Ayivo began his 3-day tour of the Volta region with an interaction with traders at the whole central market, where he outlined some policies in the PNC 2020 manifesto. Among other things, he mentioned free education from kindergarten to tertiary levels, free technical and vocational training, among others.
To bring a change to how things are going on in this country. It's about time. We have voted for 20 years for the two major parties and we don't get anything for Volta region. It's about time a change must come. So this election is about the past and the future. You know your past, you know your difficulties, you know your challenges, you know what your children are going through. We are coming with free education for the formal and informal sector. Everybody can learn some skills and have a job. We are coming with free health care, absolutely free. Whatever sickness you have, whatever disease you have, whatever ailment you have, when you have the health insurance card, you will be served. The doctors will take care of you and your medication is also covered. We are trying to deliver prosperity to all Ghanaians, every facet of the country. A change will come. We will do something with the whole airport. It will become an international airport. It will become an international hub. When they get off, they need to come here and shop. And there will be money flowing around. The dollars will be coming and life will change. Teachers will be helped. Market women will be helped. Farmers will be helped. And we will do whatever we can. So help us. Vote for PNC. You might never have voted for us before, but this is your chance to vote for David Apasara, and the change that you want will finally come.
He also paid a courtesy call on the leaders of the whole Zongo community, where he urged them to convince their followers to consider electing the PNC in the upcoming general elections. Reverend Ayivo ended his day's campaign activities with a press interaction. He believes the PNC would better implement the free education policy.
So we are coming to, since we have the blueprint, and they have borrowed our ideas. We want them now so we can bring the reality of what we envisaged, which is the free education. We want free education like it was when we went to school. You get books, sometimes you get uniform. At the university in Legon, 14 cedis was paid to us. We will not pay the 14 cedis, but we will give free education from kindergarten to tertiary, to the university. What is right now, free SHS, is good, but it's not good enough. For the poor person, when the poor child finishes free SHS, he is done with education. What occupation can you call, what profession can you fill with a SHS diploma? Can you be a doctor? Can you be an engineer? Can you be a lawyer? No. You are limited to something, selling water on the road or selling banana in the corner of the street. We don't want that. We have too many unemployed people that will invest in education.
Fred Kwame Asai, JoyNews. Ho.
Quickly connect with our correspondent Fred, who put together that story. Fred, Ghana is a very religious country. I mean, we have a lot of people being Christians as well as Muslims and other religions. Now, here is a pastor convincing people in a stronghold of the opposition NDC. How did the people respond to his message? Fred,
where we got to the
Fred, you have to start over. I didn't hear you from the beginning.
Hello, Gypsy.
Yes, please go ahead now.
Okay, so the TNC vice presidential candidate, like I rightly mentioned, started the tour of the region yesterday. He spoke with some residents in the whole central market. I should say that when we got the people in the market or the traders in the market did not really get the information of him coming to speak to them. So there was not really a gathering there for him to address. However, he tried to use the PA system that they brought there to engage the residents or the traders in the market who gave him some few applauds on some of the policies he mentioned, especially with the free education, where he mentioned that right from kindergarten, Ghanaians would have access, or Ghanaian children would have access to education free of charge up to the tertiary level. I think traders in the market really bought into this idea in the sense that they wouldn't have to spend money on the education of their wards. He also added that the PNC would ensure that they are provided with books and then uniforms. So all they have to do is that pack their kids and then dress them up and then send them to school without spending a penny on their education. He also mentioned that the PNC has plans to connect Oahu to Keta. You know, the lagoon separated Oahu from Keta. But he is saying that when the PNC comes to power, they would build a bridge across the lagoon to connect Keta to Oahu. He also stated that the whole airport is at an advantageous position. And then if the PNC is given the power to govern Ghana, they would ensure that the whole airport becomes an international facility where people or travelers can fly all the way from the USA and other parts of the world and then land in Ho, to ensure that people in the enclave or people in Ho also take advantage of this and then to engage in economic activities for good and then development in the area. He also touched on building a fishing harbour, I should say, at Keta. He believes that the area is well endowed with fish, and then if a fishing harbour is situated in Keta, people living in that enclave would have the opportunity to engage in trading activities and then also ensure that their livelihoods are enhanced. He would be continuing his tour to the Oti region tomorrow, where he spoke to us about some plans they have for the Oti region. He was particular about Dambai. He mentioned that Dambai is close to the Oti River, and then if the PNC is given the opportunity, they have plans in place to make Dambai become Dubai. That was the exact word he used, that they will make Dambai to become Dubai. So they have a lot of policies in their 2020 manifesto, and that if Ghanaians give them the opportunity to govern the country, they would ensure that Ghana witnesses progressive growth.
Fred, thank you very much for that update there. Fred Kwame Asare is our correspondent, and that's the vice presidential candidate for the PNC there, who has started his Volta region tour. We'll be keeping our eyes on that to update you. I'm going to take a very quick break. Now, when I return, we'll talk about education, including, what people are calling politicization of the sector. We'll also talk about STEM education, and then we'll talk to you about the National Cathedral. It's been a while you heard from them, hasn't it? Let's have a conversation. You can share your thoughts with us on our social media handles, also on our WhatsApp platform. Do stay with us. You're welcome to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, it's been 9 months since President Akufo-Addo has sought for construction works to begin on a new National Cathedral building. Now, that cathedral will have chapels, we're told, a baptistry, a music school, an art gallery, and a Bible museum. It is a planned interdenominational Christian cathedral that's been built as part of our 60th anniversary. Its relevance, or otherwise, as you know, has sharply divided opinions here in Ghana. Legal suits seeking to stop it have actually failed, and it's paved the way for the construction to begin, but that was 9 months ago. So 9 months on, what is the state of the project? Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng is the secretary for the Board of Trustees. He's joining me right here in the studio. We're going to start with finding out how they've been coping with the COVID season so far. Rev, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So how have you been coping? You and the church, the Board of Trustees?
It's been very challenging. All of us know how this COVID pandemic has messed a lot of things up. But by the grace of God, because of Zoom and all that, though it slowed us down, but we're able to do a lot. And as I talk to you today, I'm glad and I'm happy to say construction of the National Cathedral has commenced.
I was just going to get to that, and I was going to say that March, I think when the construction was actually supposed to start was just about the same time that we recorded our first case. So it must have hit you, but it's taken, 9 months? That's a long time, hasn't it?
It's not.
So when you say construction has begun, what is happening? If we should go to the site right now, what do we see?
You see work has begun. Because if you really understand construction, you can see it on the screen. If you truly understand construction, the paperwork has to be done, the contract, the appointment of the contractor, tendering processes, pre-qualification. Right within the COVID seasons, we were still working. If not for that, construction wouldn't have started.
But that was, I remember the last time I spoke to you.
Yes.
There was a conversation, that it was going to start.
It was going to start.
Exactly. And we've had 9 months. And within that 9 months, we've, the COVID stalled things for a while.
Obviously.
But wouldn't that be enough to have done all of these things so that at least we could have started a bit earlier?
This construction, if I'm to tell you how it is, it's not any regular construction that anybody can just do. One of the biggest construction firms in Italy that did the Grand Mosque of Abu Dhabi is the Rivani construction company, is the lead construction company, who built a JV with Babisoti and De Simone. Obviously, with the COVID, it was impossible for the winners as the contractors to have flown in to come and start any kind of a job. So with the COVID, obviously things were happening, but there was no way the construction could have begun because the people that won the bid could not come to Ghana to work. So it was the COVID that slowed us down. But by the grace of God, we've crossed that boundary and we have them in town, work has started, and things are moving.
So how does this affect the timeline, the initial timeline of the project?
Basically, it was 3.5 months, years to 4 years, but now we are going to do it in a record 3 years.
3 years?
If not more, less than 3 years.
Let me start with the concerns that we've heard people raise about availability of funding. We're told that the project stalled because money wasn't flowing.
Anybody that said that didn't really understand it. If you understand construction, construction starts with the drawings and with the other things, with the paperwork, with the appointment of a contractor and all that. The main issue why the project had not started was not money.
So
because
we have enough money.
We have people that have supported us, we have people that are still supporting us, and the government is also in the process of supporting us. So money is not the issue.
Money is not the
But
issue.
the COVID and the challenges of appointing the contractor and all those things were the things that delayed us. But now we are really on course.
Okay.
The cathedral will be built.
Well, it has already started. What we're waiting to see is the erection of the cathedral right in front of our eyes. Now,
Yes.
you say you're going to do that in record 3 years.
In record 3 years.
And within 3 years, we're looking at an election. Within 3 years, this is a government that committed itself to build this. And we don't know the outcome of the election as yet. What do you think going forward? Should government change?
To me, I just want to use this medium to applaud Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. In that, Christians are 75% of the national population. Christians. And we are in the Fourth Republic. We've had 5 presidents. All of them were Christians. Not for once did anybody think about the larger majority of the populace who are Christians. 75%.
You didn't think about them. Just because they didn't build a cathedral doesn't mean they didn't think about
whether it's a cathedral or not a cathedral, something should have been done to make a statement that the contribution of the church cannot be underestimated.
Okay, so
look at all the good schools in Ghana. Holy Child, Wesley Girls, Ola Girls, Achimota, Prempe, all of these schools.
So for you, that's a good thing by the government. But then, to bring you back to my question, where we don't know whether the incumbent will be voted back into power, and should there be a change, will it affect the process? Or do you think as of where we are right now, we can still go ahead?
Let me tell you,
if the government
let me tell you, number one, my conviction, and number two, my structures. My conviction is that God told Samuel that the hand that has begun a good work will also perfect it.
What does that mean?
It means that if the president has started the construction of the cathedral, it is fair for the government to finish it. If Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo promised the Lord to build him a cathedral and he has started building it, my conviction is that he will definitely finish the construction of the cathedral.
So what you're saying is that you believe he will win and finish?
Obviously, he'll win and win well. Okay. Because if for nothing at all.
Does that not make you, make you look as if you're taking sides? And should the government change, in the events that the government changes, do you think that the next government would work with you now to then finish the cathedral?
You see, it's not about me working or not. It's about Christians being well compensated. So if there is another government, if there will be, that says I can't work with Victor. I always have my businesses, I'm in ministry. It's not about me, it's about the work. If Christians can sit down, 75% of the population, for another government to come in to say, I discontinue the only thing that is going to be a compensation to Christians, then Christians are weak. It's time for believers to rise up, for the whole nation to understand that we are the majority. We pay more taxes. We are at peace with our Muslim brothers and sisters, but the same taxes are used for Hajj, pilgrimage. Nobody talks about it. Okay. I've never spoken about it. I've never taken anybody to court about it. There are a few boxing fanatics. Boxing arenas were built for them. I never took them to court and sued them. And so if somebody is also building a national cathedral for us, for Christians, who are 75% of the population, I wonder how another government will come in and say, I have stopped it, and so believers also sit down and say, we agree it should be stopped.
That point has been well made. My understanding is that you support the government's bid to stay in power, and you want them to do so that they can finish this cathedral, and it's your conviction that that will happen. If that doesn't happen, do you think at where we are currently, with this building?
We could.
With or without the government?
We could, because the president said that he wants ownership to be believers. Believers have done so much. So ownership of this cathedral should be the believers.
So where we are right now?
For where we are right now, if we can get 5 million Christians who are supporting this cathedral with just 10 Ghana cedis a month, 15 Ghana cedis a month, 20 Ghana cedis a month, this cathedral will be built without the intervention of anybody.
Okay.
And that is why we have a short code, *979#. *979#.
Okay.
And anybody can contribute. Yes. Okay. And if you don't have a mobile phone to donate through your phone, you could go to any ADB bank and just make your donation. Any Fidelity Bank, make your donation. Any GCB Bank to make a donation. But no government in the event, it's not even going to happen, because Danado has started building a tabernacle for God, and the one that has started will finish it. The Bible said it. So I'm of the conviction that he will definitely continue his term to see to the completion of the National Cathedral. Okay. In the event that the opposite happen, which of course it won't happen, nobody can ever say I'm intercepting it, because this is for the 75% of the population of Ghana. And this is the first time any president has ever thought about Christians this way.
I'll take your final words, but if you want to support the cathedral, they say, the Board of Trustees say they have a short code through which you can support. That's *979#. And some of you have been sending some messages. I think I have some messages on other stories. Just one I have seen so far on the cathedral. We'll read it and then I'll take Reverend's final words as we go along. But the number is 0540109009. This one says, I just listened to the update vis-a-vis the National Cathedral. We Ghanaians today will not stand and watch this happen. Okay. All right. Okay, most of you are talking generally. All right, so Rev, let me take your final words. We're going into an election, but you have a project to finish with or without government support. What do you leave my audience with?
It's time believers understand that if it is true that this man has helped us to this far and we are getting to an election, the hand that has begun should finish it. And so the best way the church can also compensate Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is to retain him so that he finishes what no other president ever did for the Christian fraternity.
Thank you.
Believers have done a lot for this nation. It's time the nation also recognizes us and also blesses us.
Thank you very much for passing through. So that's the Secretary to the Board of Trustees for the Cathedral. And as we're speaking, they're saying that the construction has started. It hasn't stalled because money isn't flowing. It has stalled because of the COVID-19 issues that we had. Reverend Kusi Boateng has been my guest for today on this one. Thank you very much for passing through.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now that we finished talking about, the cathedral, I want us to talk about education. Now, the elections are just days away. We're talking about, 4-5 days? And as suspected, politicians have intensified their campaigns with mouth-watering promises. Now, one of such is the free education, not only for senior high school levels, but through tertiary institutions. That's what they're promising now. Well, that has generated some arguments. And the two biggest political parties, the MPP and the NDC, are at the center of this particular conversation. They have been promising major scholarship scheme changes if re-elected or if elected. But stakeholders in education are warning of possible disruptions in the sector. They're calling for depoliticization of the scholarship award scheme or the scholarship schemes. And one of such organizations is Education Watch, an NGO in the education sector. They've actually issued a statement in that regard. And we can take a brief look at the statement, but I'll talk to the head of that NGO about what their concerns are. Kofi Asare there, who's joining us via Zoom. Now, let's take a look at the excerpt of the statement. It says the minimum cost of scholarship for a needy but brilliant tertiary student is $4,000 per year, $2,500 for academic facility user fees, others. So he goes on and he lists them, including accommodation, etc. He talks about the GNPC scholarship in which students receive some 7,000 cedis a year. He says the Scholarship Secretariat claims to have budgeted 20 million for local tertiary scholarships, which is for freshmen, and that is great. But the said amount, when administered at 4,000 a year, can take care of 5,000 students out of government-anticipated 200,000 freshmen. They believe it is better to administer 4 scholarships to needy students who have no means of enrolling and completing tertiary school than administer 1,300 year handouts, which takes care of less than 50%. So let's get him to explain to us more. Kofi, thank you very much for your time and for your patience in waiting. So you're saying that this is better, but we could do it the other way around. Break it down for us.
Yeah, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your audience. What we are virtually saying is that a half scholarship for a needy student is not scholarship, in the sense that that student has no means of enrolling and most importantly, completing school. And so having cognizance of the fact that it costs close to 4,000 to give a full scholarship, i.e. residential and then academic facilities fees and other related fees, it is better for the local tertiary scholarship program to rather disburse funds to needy students in a manner that covers their total residential and academic facilities fees, so that we are sure that they are really on scholarship and they have what it takes to enroll and complete tertiary.
I mean, this is the Scholarship Secretariat's announcement. You've also heard what the NDC is promising, and you are calling for depoliticization of the sector. How bad is this? Now, you say you do this for me, another party said they'll do this for me. That gives us the power of choice. Isn't it what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, before I come to the NDC proposal, you see, the Scholarship Secretariat, it's a heavily politicized institution. One of the most politicized institutions, I must admit. Scholarships are normally cooked for government officials and then relations of politicians. That is an open secret. And then a couple of them.
Is that a scientific stance you're putting out there?
Oh,
Kofi?
yes.
It is?
There are so many reports that have been made. We have actually made a report that, and together with news, we actually appealed to Parliament that we need a standing legislation for that office, because it is under the office of the president, and it's amenable to political interference. It's just like the Get Fund scholarship, okay? And so what happens is that political cronies are giving scholarship, relations of politicians, not under MPP. Ever since that secretariat existed, that's been a political unit. Very few scholarships go to tertiary institutions on merit, and a couple of individuals who really deserve it. The point we are making is that we need to depoliticize it. Why are we making that point? Because last week, the MPP Free Senior High School Graduate Association was formed. It was inaugurated by the Minister of Education. That's the Koforia Eastern Region branch. And in that launch, the minister declared Mr. Kingsley Ajimai, the head of the Scholarship Secretariat, as their patron. He is tasked to oversee the activities of that particular group. Now, this morning, that group issued a statement that 40,000 of their members are going to apply for the scholarship. Meanwhile, the money available is for 15,000. So and during the launch last week, they promised them that they were going to give them support to go to tertiary institutions. If you marry the two together, one person being more or less convener of the MPP Free Senior High School Graduate Association, that same person doubles as the registrar of scholarships. Where do you think the scholarships will go? Let's be honest with ourselves. And so that's why we are calling for depoliticization. Other than that, we will give the scholarships once again to people who are politically connected, leaving the genuinely needy to sit at home.
So that's where your depoliticization comes from, not necessarily based on two different parties competing for votes, but based on the administration of the already existing scholarship structure.
Exactly, based on the administration, because the argument that the Scholarship Secretariat is decentralized doesn't have any bearing on whether there is any transparency or any due process or any fairness in the award process.
Okay.
The decentralization of the scholarship is just to enable a decentralized application. But the approval and the awarding mechanism is still centralized, and it is heavily a subject matter for politicians.
But I'd like to take your thoughts. I'd like to take your thoughts on the promises, the education promises or the political campaign promises, you know, that are focused on education. Recently, we've seen a surge in the promise of free education, especially at the tertiary level. So the NPP, the governing NPP's part, which you just talked about, vis-a-vis the NDC's promise. I'd like to wrap up with your thoughts on that one. Does that amount to politicization, or is this just a presentation of what could be for people to choose?
I think one cannot lose sight of the fact that both parties are desperate to win power. And in that desperation, they are making all sorts of promises. Most of them hardly thought through, with the aim of convincing Ghanaians. Both parties are convinced that Ghanaians like free things, irrespective of the quality. And so it's been a promising spree. You know, it's sort of a circus of promises, political promises here and there. We saw the NDC suddenly amend their manifesto that was developed about 2 months ago, which took them about 3 months to develop, suddenly amended on the eve of another party's announcement of scholarship. And we ask ourselves, you see, how can we hold a party accountable to promises that are made outside the manifesto? Because in 2016, the challenge we had with the MPP was that most of the promises Dr. Bawumia made were not in the manifesto. So when they won and we demanded accountability, they said, no, it is not in our manifesto. It wasn't the party's position. So this time around, we have learned some lessons from 2016.
Well.
We want to deal with parties from what they promise within the context of their manifestos, so that we can hold them accountable to them.
All right. I take that to be your final comment. Otherwise, if there's any pressing issue I haven't asked about and you want to address, let's go for it as we wrap up.
No, we just want to wish the parties well, but we want to advise Ghanaians to be wary of the sweet promises and be circumspect in the sense that not everything free is relevant. Not everything free is needful.
Okay, just a message here. This one says, good afternoon. I really don't get it. If can Mahama pay first-year student admission fees for them? I thought he said Nana Dodankwa can give Ghanaians free education. Most of your messages are also on the cathedral, so I'm really lost as to which other ones to read. But Kofi Asare, thank you very much, Kofi, for your thoughts. And that's Kofi. There is Education Watch. They are raising concerns about politicization, if you like, of the scholarship scheme. Not just about the promises being made here and there by politicians, but also about how we administer scholarships in this country. Well, let me talk a bit more about education. The campaign, as you know, has been focusing largely on these political promises of free senior high school, free tertiary education. But the concern, again, has also been of what quality are we giving our people this education, and to what extent are we as a country focusing on the STEM approach to education, which is what, you know, the world is doing right now. Now, STEM is based on the idea of teaching based on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. More so, female inclusion. I'm delighted to be able to talk to an example of STEM success, and she'll share her story, and hopefully we'll discuss some thought-provoking ideas on the way forward for educators to incorporate this in our education curriculum. Catherine Kuto was recently named Female Mining Professional of the Year 2019 by the Ghana Chamber of Mines. She's also a metallurgical manager for Apostle Goldfields Limited. Catherine, it's good to have you. Good afternoon. Do you hear me, Catherine?
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
I do hear you now. Hopefully, I'll see you soon. So, we're celebrating your story as one of, a STEM success, science, technology, engineering, maths, success. But that's a subject area that many of us, our girls, run away from. But let's begin our conversation with you helping us understand your position. Metallurgical, what does that even mean?
Metallurgical, when we talk about metallurgical engineering, It is actually a study of metals.
A study of metals?
Oh, right. Yes, it's a study of metals.
Okay.
And it is actually a degree program covering mining, extraction, design, processing of metals, as well as how metals react to the environment. And then the changes, the environmental changes and the stress. So basically, it is a study when you bring it to mining, in terms of mining processing, it is an area where the extraction of the coal is actually done when we talk about metallurgical plant. You know, in general times, people do understand that the ore or the material that is containing the coal is actually delivered from the pit to the process plant. So it is in the metallurgical plant that we do extract the coal from the material that was delivered from the pit to get our mineral of interest. So in simple terms, metallurgy is all about metal extractions.
Well, I want to also congratulate you on your recent award by the Ghana Chamber of Mines. So we have a few pictures of that we can perhaps put on to encourage some of these girls. But the Chamber of Mines and other organizations have been pushing for more support and effort for our girls, many of our girls, to be interested in STEM courses in schools. In your opinion, what is the key in getting more Ghanaian girls interested in STEM subjects?
In my opinion, I think charity begins at home. It is the duty of we parents at home to take away the fear, which is usually associated with the study of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I think most children in their youthful age get that perception, that wrong perception that science is difficult. Anything about mathematics is very difficult. So for us to actually have a good foundation, then parents will need to take away, work on initial fears of every child. If we start that way, it will make it easier for teachers to be able to now align the children based on each person's potentials. So to me, STEM courses are very easy. They are just like any ordinary courses, other courses. But then we as parents need to get that wrong perception out of the child's mind right from the beginning. Right from the day that the child is in the house, you need to start teaching the child that if I have one tomato and I add another tomato to it, it should become 2 tomatoes. Then you are getting the mathematical fear out of the child right from the beginning.
I don't know if you can hear me, Catherine, but we're seeing a few of your pictures, but we'd love for more of our girls to be able to see you. But it looks like your Zoom video is a little bit covered. If you can unveil yourself for us to see you as we have the conversation, it will be great. But you've talked about how we can get more girls involved, about getting it from the house and getting it started. But the thing is that most of the women who are raising these girls themselves are not really interested in the science. Is there a way that we can do this in school to get more girls interested?
Yes, we can do that in school. I think basically from the school point of view, it all comes back to each student's availability to a teacher and a teacher being able to identify the child's potentials right from the beginning. And the passion here is also very important. But for me, I see that the issue of fear, the issue of this is a no-go area is always the stumbling block. That is the foundation. And that's why I keep talking about for us to do well in science, not only as girls, but then as children. It is the initial fear, that the fear of mathematics, the fear of the integrated science or the general science is what we need to work on. Okay. But then in terms of teaching, I think the science has to be more practical. It should be an activity-based. In that way, we will be able to overcome the fear But then in a situation where we need to read and try to memorize equations and all that, then it makes it very difficult for children to appreciate that STEM courses are really the best to do. So maybe our educational system, we need to ensure that it is an activity based. It is more practical. If we can make it more practical, science is everyday life. I believe every child will grow to love it, and especially as girls or ladies that actually do very well in managing and doing 3 or 4 things at a time. We should be able to overcome it with practicalities.
Well, already we know that in the mining industry, you hardly have a lot of women there. So, of course, your story, that's why it's being celebrated by the Ghana Chamber of Mines. But you're the first female to be in your current position, even at Goldfields. Tell us a bit about your journey as we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. My journey, I must say, that has been very supportive by the industry, especially the men that I have actually worked with. Because growing up in the industry, I started as a laboratory metallurgist. And then after 2 years in the metallurgical lab, I moved, or I decided personally to change my area of work. So I applied for a role transfer, a transfer to a different section. So I was moved from the metallurgical laboratory, which is actually part of the technical section, into the operational section. So I went into the operation as a shift foreman, and it was the first time a lady was actually put on shift. So I ran the shift for almost a year, and then fortunately at the time, new month came. So my shift supervisor had the opportunity to leave for new month, and then I was actually interviewed and then promoted to pick up a shift. So I became one of the first shift supervisor, a senior shift supervisor. And running the shifts, I actually also went back to school to do my master's. So I was combining the work with the school. I was doing a modular course. So every time I had a model, then I would apply for 2 weeks leave to go and do that model. So I did that for 3 years. And after the 3 years, I was actually moved from the shift, and then I became an ICMC coordinator, that is International Assignment Management Coordinator.
Okay.
And then Senior Training Coordinator in the process plant.
It's actually a very long journey, which we obviously can't address here. But I need to wrap up because I'm running out of time. You're doing your PhD as well, studying, I'm sure, how the metals continue to work with the environment, and we'll take some more inspiration from there. But what message will you leave for young girls who are watching you? And I was really hoping that we could see you on the video, on the Zoom video right now. What message would you have for young girls watching you or listening to you who want to be in engineering, who want to be in science? Your final message for them.
Yes, my final message I could not deliver without giving much appreciation to Goldfields for giving me the opportunity, and then the leadership of Goldfields is for creating the enabling environment for women to be able to contribute, compete, and then also take up the rightful place in the industry. So for me, to all ladies listening, I want to tell them that the future looks bright for us, and then those of us in the industry have already proven that female can excel in the industry. Okay. So all they need is get a passion, choose the right career, because when you come into mining, it is not only about metallurgical engineering, it is also about geology, right. It's also about electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. Right. So there are opportunities. Okay. And a company like Goldfields has already set the right foundation for us to succeed, okay, or to be very successful. Right. So I will encourage them to go into mining and then work hard and be able to succeed.
Right. Catherine, we'll say a very big thanks to you. And once again, congratulations on your latest your award. That's the Female Mining Professional of the Year, awarded by the Ghana Chamber of Mines. That's Catherine Kuto. She's the a metallurgical manager for the Abosso Goldfields Limited. And she says the word is essentially how the metals work with the environment. Catherine, thank you once again. I'll take a very quick break. One of the things we'll do when I return, we'll take you to Germany. Coronavirus is still killing about 400 people in 24 hours over there. But Christmas is coming. How are they celebrating Christmas? In all of that, we'll tell you more. You're welcome back. Now, the month of Christmas is finally here, but it obviously will not be the same with several thousands dead all over the world. As we focus on our elections here in Ghana, Germany and many parts of Europe continue to worry about coronavirus and its accompanying restrictions, even as they enter Christmas, which is a big deal for people in Germany. I've been talking to Thomas Sparrow, correspondent with our partners DW, on what the situation looks like in Germany. I first started asking him about the coronavirus figures out there.
So the situation here in Germany is still very serious. You still have around 17,000 new cases in the last 24 hours, or 17. And that is certainly a very high number, although it must also be stressed it is lower than what you saw in previous days. So authorities have been saying that they're cautiously optimistic that the situation could be improving. In other words, that the curve might be slowly flattening. The main issue here, however, now and today, Germany had yet another record in this particular category, is in the number of deaths as a result of coronavirus, over 400 in the last 24 hours. And this is something that is certainly particularly worrying for German authorities. So on the one hand, you have the overall numbers of new infected people. On the other hand, you have those who are suffering particularly, and in particular those who are also dying. This issue is now one of the most important when it comes to the political debate here in the country as to what exactly should be done in the coming days and weeks. If you look at other countries, the situation is also serious. Most European countries are facing very serious restrictions now because the numbers continue to be very high. And that's why authorities, not only here in Germany, but in other countries as well, have been discussing, on the one hand, what needs to be done to make sure that those restrictions are effective. In other words, to make sure the numbers continue to go down. Right. And on the other hand, what needs to be done to make sure that people, despite those restrictions, can still celebrate Christmas in one way or another with their relatives.
And that's exactly the next point that I'm taking you to. 400 people dying in 24 hours, that's a lot. Now, typically around this time, people will start purchasing already. But most Christmas markets, for example, are closed, and there are the restrictions that you talked about as far as movement is concerned. How are people expected to go through the festive season? What is allowed and what is not?
So you mentioned the Christmas markets, Gifty. They are a very important part of Germany's Christmas tradition here. And they're also, by the way, famous internationally. You may have seen some of the pictures of those very beautiful Christmas markets. Well, this year you won't see any pictures of those very beautiful Christmas markets full with people, simply because they have been closed to prevent big groups of people gathering. In other words, that is one of the key restrictions when it comes to the Christmas season here in Germany. In addition, you mentioned as well the aspect of people going out shopping. Shops here remain open. This is one of the key elements of this so-called lockdown light. However, there are restrictions as to the number of people that can be in one shop at a particular time buying things in these next few weeks. It depends on the number of people on the one hand, on the other hand also on how big the shop is. That all does not mean that Germans will still not be able to celebrate Christmas. The government has clearly stated that they want Germans to be able to meet their relatives despite the fact that there are restrictions. And that's why, although now, for example, in these weeks, people are only allowed to meet up to 5 people, excluding children, when it comes to those very important Christmas days, so from the 23rd of December to the 1st of January, in most parts of the country, it will be up to 10 people that will be allowed to meet, excluding children, in order to be able to meet relatives, meet friends, and be able to celebrate those very important Christmas holidays.
I see. Let's end our conversation today with the one element that seems to be giving the whole world some hope: the vaccine development. Where are we at the moment?
You heard, Gifty, probably the news coming from the United Kingdom that they approved the use of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. They also expect to be rolling out vaccines already next week. This is certainly not the case just yet here in Germany and in other parts of Europe. They are still waiting for further approval when it comes not only to that particular vaccine, but also to other vaccines that have been carrying out trials in the last few months. The hope that the German government has is that they can have the approval soon so that they can start rolling out the vaccine by the end of the year or the very beginning of the next one. Once that happens, Germany already plans to have everything in place so that that distribution can happen smoothly. So in other words, already a variety of centers are being planned and organized around the country. So very big centers, for example, here in Berlin, in a disused airport terminal or trade fairs. And that will be how the vaccine will be distributed to the population. It will be also done in a matter of priority. So they will prioritize people in risk groups. They will prioritize healthcare workers. They will prioritize people in so-called relevant professions, so people who work in professions that are important to maintain public life, like police officers or teachers, for example. This is the way the German government and German authorities regionally have planned this rollout of the vaccine. The important element, Gifty, however, is still pending, namely when the authorization will be given for German authorities and authorities in other parts of the world to start distributing this vaccine, which, as you clearly mentioned, is something that is giving people a lot of hope in these very difficult times.
Well, we still have a lot of days to Christmas yet. Maybe things will get better as we go along. So we wait to see. Thomas, thank you very much for that update. It's been a while. Thomas Sparrow is a correspondent with our partners, DW, and as we do every Wednesday, he joined us all the way from Berlin. As my conversation earlier with Thomas Sparrow, and I said there's more news at myjoyonline.com if you do log on. My name is Gifty Andor. Pierre, it's always a pleasure coming your way.